Hebrews chapter 7 verse 5 mentioned that the sons of Levi have the commandment to collect tithe. But what if Levites refuse to collect the tithe? Would it follow that they refuse the commandment of God? The answer is yes. If God commands it, one is obliged to obey. If not, then it's disobedience, therefore a sin. Now we read in 1 Corinthians chapter 9 verse 14 that the Lord commanded that those who preach the gospel should get their living from the gospel. So it's a commandment, therefore, one is obliged to obey. Preachers in denomination groups, such as in Born-Again Christians, United Pentecostal churches, and others use this verse to support that a pastor should collect tithe as a means of getting a living from the gospel, and this is a must, otherwise they will disobey the commandment. Is this correct? No. Why? Because if this is correct, then Paul would have disobeyed this commandment, because in the very next verse he said, "But I have not used any of these rights, and I am not writing this in the hope that you will do such things for me, for I would rather die than allow anyone to deprive me of this boast." 1 Corinthians chapter 9 verse 15. When he refused to collect tithing as a means for him to live from the gospel, he would have disobeyed the Lord. Is this the case? Certainly not. Even if he refused to be supported, he was still able to obey the commandment to live from the gospel, but not by means of collecting tithes, but rather by working. And through the gospel, he received wisdom, strength, and knowledge to be able to work to support himself, and at the same time preach the gospel. This was their practice on how they get their living from the gospel, which they said the followers ought to follow. It is written, "Surely you remember, brothers and sisters, our toil and hardship. We worked night and day in order not to be a burden to anyone while we preached the gospel of God to you." 1 Thessalonians chapter 2 verse 9. Nor did we eat anyone's food without paying for it. On the contrary, we worked night and day, laboring and toiling so that we would not be a burden to any of you. We did this not because we do not have the right to such help, but in order to offer ourselves as a model for you to imitate. 2 Thessalonians 3 verses 8 to 9. So as a preacher, are you a follower of their example?